you got to realize that whatever you're doing, you're competing with somebody. What is it that gives you an advantage over your competition? Whatever you're good at, try to be great at it. And if you're great at it, good things will happen.
Maverick Podcast.
I'm far from average. That's why I had to come sit down and chop it up with DJ Maverick. They know my name from coast to coast and even in Dallas. I use my talent when I'm faced with a challenge. Gratitude strength is my magnet. Close your eyes and imagine. If you can see it in your mind, then you can have it.
Maverick Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Maverick. Today we have another rock star in the building. We have the founder of the one and only Fanwave, Tanner Smith. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
For the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a classically trained guitarist, went to Southern Nazarene University, graduated with a music business degree, was in a ska punk band from about 2010 to 2014. After that, I moved up to Canada to pursue video game composition, and actually ended up co-managing my ex-girlfriend's band a little, like helping them make some decisions and talk to them a little bit about booking.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the problems that they had was they couldn't find artists outside of their area that they wanted to book with. So kind of tooled some things around, made a few mock-ups. They came back, said, maybe not that. Maybe it needs to be easier.
Yeah.
And ultimately decided, okay, there's something here. I need to figure out what that is. And ultimately 6 years later came up with Fanwave, which used to be called Bands to Watch, which was the first iteration, which was essentially a survey system. Mm-hmm. And then now Fanwave is a live music calendar for the city. We just launched in Oklahoma City last year. So yeah, I'm super excited to chat a little bit about it.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm always curious about the moment where the idea kind of hits you, right? Mm-hmm. So you being a musician, was there a problem that you were trying to solve? Because I think an entrepreneur is always trying to solve the problem and then figure out the details later, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
At what moment was it you being a musician saying, hey, these venues have this problem, or as an artist, I have this problem? Mm-hmm. Or was it you being a manager that's when the idea sort of sparked?
So a little bit of both. I think really the way Fanwave, so I built what the fans wanted, and then eventually the artists could use. The problem came about when I was in my band. It was actually called Sunny Side Up, which was nice. Hilarious. But I realized that we could get a lot done with data. Mm. And we were able to book shows that other people couldn't through tracking our data. Bands don't track their data. Yeah. They don't know who's coming to the shows. They might know like a small group of friends. And instead of being more of an educational tool, it was, how do we do this for you? How do we track the data for you, give you a dashboard so you could view it? And ultimately, I think we landed on a solution that sounded good on paper, which was a survey system. You basically check in. It asks you two simple questions. It's a multiple choice, multi-select, so you can basically answer who'd you come to see, and it's the bands on the lineup, and who'd you like the most out of the bands on the lineup.
So it started from a fan perspective initially?
Exactly. Yeah, the fans were, they'd be like, yeah, I'd check in for free tickets, or yeah, I'd check in, and what we've seen so far is it's been pretty dull in terms of like the actual conversion rate.
Okay.
People are just too distracted at venues, right? They want to do a million other things. Their focus is on booze, meet up with friends. They don't want to check in. They don't want to do a QR code. So we've kind of been toying with some sort of automated check-in system where if you just open the app, or if you're there and you've given it location access, it will kind of know that you're within that area if you've marked that you're attending, something like that. And there's a few other ways that we've been discussing doing that. But yeah, it came out of a fan desire to know what's going on, an artist's desire to, essentially book better shows, because the ultimate goal of Fanwave was to book shows through data-driven decision-making. Mm-hmm. And if venues had more granular data on their fans, they would know, who they should book next. And some ticketing companies do cover that,
Mhm.
but usually you're paying top dollar for that. And these venues, these small indie venues, they don't have that kind of money. One of my best friends, and our first pilot that you actually had on the show recently is Patrick over at Resident Head.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
he's been
shout
a
out
huge
Patrick.
proponent. Yeah. Love Patrick. And he has been a huge proponent of Fanwave. He's like, Oklahoma City's needed this. We need a way to post shows, have just a straight shot to what's going on in the city. Because there are other apps. There's bands in town. There's Spotify.
Right.
But they don't put that at the forefront. Like Spotify is a streaming platform. Bands in Town is more of a marketing platform. So it kind of gets fuzzy. And when you have people that they want to open up the app, know what's going on tonight, we made it that simple, right?
Okay.
And we do pull a little bit of shows, but we mostly rely on the artists to post their shows. And we've had a pretty good success rate with the artists actually getting on and posting their shows, which is pretty sweet. Like I've seen the app grow from, we had 10 users to now we're at, I think, close to 500.
Awesome. The app has 3 pipelines, right? So you have the fan, you have the band, and then you have the venue, right? So can you walk me through sort of what are the benefits of each of those pipelines?
Yeah, absolutely. So the fans, obviously, they get to find more music, follow their favorite artists and venues so they don't miss a beat, instead of going back and forth between Instagram, Facebook, the Gazette, Google Maps, whatever.
Instagram, you name it.
Yeah. They're tired of going back and forth. So we kind of added that. But then, as I mentioned with the survey thing, we're probably going to be maybe sunsetting that and moving towards more social elements. And that is, potentially a green room for the attendees of a venue to go and chat with the band beforehand, right?
That's cool.
Maybe super exclusive prize packs for some of their biggest, their top fans. And there are some other apps that kind of do like paid for subscriptions where you can be like the super fan and you'll get exclusive access, but we don't want to do that. We don't want to charge the fan, really. We're kind of like talking, we're doing a lot of surveying right now with our current user base to see like what they want to see out of it, right? Because that's the goal of a startup, is like pivot until you find your product market fit.
For sure.
So that fan element is there. The venues, ultimately their goal would be to use the data that we collect and book better shows.
Okay.
They'd have a leaderboard of the top artists in the area based on the data that we're receiving, and ultimately find their average crowd draw and be like, oh, I can book this artist because they have an average crowd draw of 100 people and my cap is 250. They're going to bring quite a bit of people. It also helps them when they're touring, because they could be like, we've proven ourselves out here. We can show this venue that doesn't know who we are that we have, a 6-month track record of bringing in a pretty good amount of people. Now, obviously, when you get to the artist side, they want to know who is coming to their shows. They want to see that the effort that they're putting into the app is working. So we've kind of built a small little dashboard for them to see their statistics. But again, it kind of comes down to the users, right? The chicken and the egg. It's like, if there's not a lot of users, there's not a lot of statistics. So we're kind of building a little bit of everything all at once.
Yeah.
And it is a very challenging challenge, for a better word, where you have a 3-sided marketplace, essentially.
Right.
An ecosystem. And it's, now we're kind of having to look at that and be a little more kind of going in with the scalp and be like, okay, what can we do to cut some of the fat here to make better decisions that will help the fans, the artists, and the venues on things that they really want to use.
Okay.
So
So that's an interesting perspective, right? Because you're right. Creatives, usually they just want to do the creative side, right? Like they want to focus on the band, the music. They don't really want to worry about, surveys, data, analytics. So what drew you to that sort of thing, right? To the data portion, the tech portion. How did you get interested in that?
Yeah. So being a musician, I tried to get a job in the music industry, moved to Nashville for a bit, was up trying to pursue game music in Toronto, ultimately ended up in Buffalo, New York, to stay close to Toronto, and got heavily involved as a sales executive in the startup scene.
Got it.
Working for a company called ACV Auctions that ended up being a multi-billion-dollar company. Worked with a few other startups there, Hire Me, who ended up going on and having an exit, and some other ones that. So I was like, there's so much power in data,
Yeah.
and that's what we're missing from this idea, right? With the data piece, I essentially really got interested in the whole analytics side and how data interacts with each piece, and I did a boot camp for software engineering, and now I'm a software engineer full time, working for another startup here in Oklahoma City called Drove Technologies. We're in the transportation safety technology space, so we do a lot of data collection, and so it's been a really cool way to transfer some of my skills from music and some of my skills from tech into this kind of child that I've created, this Fanwave business. It started as a hobby, and now I'm moving it more in towards a business. So
yeah, I would say the economics and just the music industry in general are pretty tough, and I think they're getting tougher, right? In today's economy, with inflation, ticket prices, you name it, it's pretty tough, right? To run a tour from a band perspective and also from a venue perspective, ticket prices and keeping everything overhead, right?
Right.
So would you say that your app is going to gear towards helping that sort of thing? Because data is the new gold, right? So if you make better decisions with the data, I could see that would be beneficial.
Absolutely, yeah. And I try not to skip over that part too much, but there are a lot of small businesses, a lot of small venues that are literally working 60-hour work weeks because they can't afford to pay the staff to do the things that they need to do. I have a venue who is running sound, running marketing, booking the bands, running the lights, and I mean, Patrick does a lot of that too. I mean, thankfully he's done a really good job of fostering that, that Capitol Hill area. But the thing is, it's a struggle. I mean, it is a struggle for these venues, and if I could just provide them a little bit, even if it's like 70% accurate, then that can help them book better shows, because they're taking a chance every time they book.
Right.
They're either gonna hit their their numbers, or they're not. And the goal is to somehow collect the data and then give it to them.
Yeah.
And the challenge is we can't charge for that necessarily, but we could potentially charge $5 advertising in the app. Do something to where we're not charging them an arm and a leg,
right?
But they're able to promote their show and be able to see what the data is like, and go in and check it. And then maybe once they start having more successful shows, we could maybe start taking a possible percentage of, like, a very small percentage, right?
Yeah.
The whole point is giving back to the community, right? Currently, we have an in-app ticketing system for DIY. That actually, Grand Royale, I don't know if you've been there. They're a great bar.
Okay.
Pretty much a punk bar, punk, ska rock, whatever you want to call it. They started using us exclusively for their ticketing. They've seen good success, and we donate half of those proceeds that we get from those ticket sales to the Allied Arts.
Okay.
So we're like all about giving back to the community.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool, because I would say, even if you could be, like you said, 70% more accurate or whatever, I could see a venue wanting to invest in that and pay a monthly charge for that, because I think traditionally it's a lot based off your gut, right?
Yeah,
like,
it is.
I think this artist is going to pop off. I mean, even on record labels, it's like, okay, I'm going to take a risk on this artist because my gut is telling me, right?
It's a gamble.
But you have the data to prove there's like 70% or whatever, 60%. Right?
And the challenge is getting that data, right? And figuring out where that data lives. And that's, once somebody cracks that, they're going to be a millionaire, because they're going to save these venues, right? Because even now, on average, 1 in 4 venues fails to make a profit.
Really?
And that's a staggering. I mean, that's like $120,000 a year for the average medium-sized venue.
Jeez.
And they're just taking a bath.
Yeah. I always hear the worst business to start is a restaurant or a nightclub. Those are like the biggest industries.
Yep. Yeah, never start a restaurant and never start a venue or a nightclub.
Yeah.
The other one is, funny enough, a recording studio.
Really? Okay.
Because those are just a money pit. You
Yeah.
have tons of equipment. That's what my music business teacher told me. He said, if you're coming in here, he's the smartest person I've ever met, probably. Ken Rosefeld over at SNU. He told the whole class, he said, if you're here to go become the next Lil Wayne or, start a recording
Like the
studio.
dudes right there.
Yeah, he basically was just like, you probably need to go because it's not a good path right now.
Yeah.
And that was dated because that was back in 2010.
And the barrier to entry,
Yeah.
right? So if you think
Crazy.
about tech
Yeah.
right now, like you can record and do a lot of stuff from your bedroom.
And that's what he
So,
foresaw. Yeah,
right.
that was right when Spotify launched. I mean, Spotify was in the beta at that
Yeah.
point, and look at us now. We're
Right.
everything's automated. Everything is out of the house. Everybody's remote working. So
True.
yeah, very interesting times we live in.
Yeah. I always hear about gamification, right?
Mhm.
So if I'm thinking from a fan perspective, if you gamify somehow to where I want to engage, whether that be exclusive merch or like you said, there's points, or we even talked about potential like chatting before the show,
Yeah.
right? So have you thought about any of that?
So right now, the early stages of our gamification have begun. We created a wallet
Mhm.
that you can see the check-ins that you've made at the events that are sponsored or that are partnered with Fanwave. So right
Okay.
now we have Factory Obscura and we have Resonant Head. And Resonant Head, every time you go to a Res Head show, you check in, you get a point. After 10 points, you get a free pair of tickets. But each check-in actually gets you a chance to win a free pair of tickets
cool.
that are randomized
Mhm.
around your music tastes.
Okay.
So the goal is to try to get these people to check in, right? And we're all about giving stuff away.
Right.
But it needs to be a meaningful experience. And I think that's kind of what we've deduced between, this started in November and we're still seeing a very low number of check-ins. So the data just isn't really there.
Yeah.
So there's got to be another way, right? And
Mm.
there was a really, the idea that I had for the gamification was to have, a points marketplace where you could spend it on band merch and stuff. And that's so later on down the line, right? That's actually when we have some more interest, when we have bands that are willing to, do that kind of thing in exchange for that data.
Mhm.
And then again, where do we get that data? So again, the whole point, it all comes back to the data.
Yeah, the Spotify API or Apple
Mhm.
Music API, where you can do some integrations, and then that
Yeah.
would be cool, right? But
Yeah.
you tell
It's
me,
it's pretty closed off.
Yeah.
They keep a lot of their event information pretty closed off because it's all like proprietary through
Sure.
partnerships through Ticketmaster and Bands in Town. But a lot of the taste stuff from the fan profile, we've been working to integrate that into our app. It's just kind of a trial and error right now.
Okay.
And eventually we will be able to link that.
Mhm.
And it's more of an MVP, like it's still in its MVP stages, right? We're
Mhm.
still trying to look for that product market fit. We need to have more people using it daily. Right now, they're mostly using it on the weekends.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's when everything's happening.
Right.
Like if you look at, it's really funny. If you look at the
It's
data,
like a spike.
it's just a spike. It's
Yeah.
every time it's just up, down. And you can tell. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
good data. I mean, we're looking at 100 people logging in on the weekends to find out what's going on.
Mhm.
And we haven't had any churn. We haven't had anybody delete their profile,
Cool.
which is pretty sweet. Like,
Yeah.
so it's definitely, it's a real app with real, it's solving a real problem.
Mhm.
But the question is, nobody wants to really pay for it. So where do we go
Right.
to make it a business?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the tricky part.
Yeah.
So,
Are all the other apps the same way, like Shazam or even SoundCloud? Like all those APIs are closed off. I'm just thinking of like integrations to where
Yeah.
you can pull more valuable data, right?
some of them don't even have open APIs,
Really?
right? So there are a lot of, like we looked at using Songkick.
Okay.
They charge $500 a month
Jeez.
for their API. We don't have that kind of money. So that's kind of that was more of, I think that's more for like enterprise
Mhm.
and it also is kind of, a gatekeeping technique to
Yeah.
keep people who, they used to have a free API for developers and hobbyists, but they said
Mhm.
we're shutting it down.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, there are they still don't have the data that we necessarily want. We want the data of are you here for a specific band, right? We want to track crowd draw. And actually, I came up with a kind of a clever solution that would eventually work its way out through the law of averages.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you've got 4 artists on a gig, and you have the venue put in their ticket sales, or we can somehow pull that data from wherever they're putting in their ticket sales or wherever they're selling their tickets. Then we could know, okay, these 4 artists, they get split tickets evenly, right? So let's say there's 100 people that show up, each artist gets 25. Then the next show, one artist plays a smaller show, one artist plays a bigger show, right? They're going to have 60, the next, maybe that person gets 10, so that average goes from 25 down to, 10, and then, 14 and a half or whatever the number ends up being between those two, and then the nether artist goes up because they went from 25 to 60, so they're at 45, right? I'm just doing quick math. Don't correct me. I don't, no comments about my math. But ultimately, over time, you would have a stabilized average, and you can see over time based on just the venue putting in their tickets. So we've thought about that because I think that could potentially work.
Yeah.
And then that is that 60 percentile, right? That is that it's not 100% accurate, but at least it's something that the venue can go off. And so we're kind of looking at that, potentially bringing that into the app, like in a venue dashboard where they could just go in and put their ticket sales.
Cool.
And that obviously that relies on venues being, you know, accurate. So
So I would say on the tech side of things, it's kind of going through the same type of experience that the music industry is too, right? To where it's really cutthroat, costs. You have to be really like, small teams. It seems like they're cutting a lot of the leadership roles, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What's been the most valuable lesson that you have learned from an entrepreneur perspective now that you're in the tech space, right?
Man, that is a really good question. I've learned a lot. I think the first and foremost is just listening to the users. And that's I tell every single entrepreneur who asks me for entrepreneurial advice, listen to your users, you'll get the feedback, because all a startup is iterating over your feedback loop. And not necessarily just doing A/B testing, but doing testing on, sending out surveys, having real conversations one-on-one, calling up your fans. I actually just finished a program called G Beta this past winter. Okay. And it's I want to say it was 12 weeks. Was it 12 weeks? It was maybe 9 weeks. I can't. It was a pretty good amount of time, but it was an entrepreneurial, basically an incubator of sorts that puts you on the right track to focus on what you're focusing on. And they say you're supposed to zoom in and zoom out, right? Zoom in on the product, zoom out and look at the big picture. Zoom out, look at your fans, look at your users. And ultimately comes down to sales, right? So if you're not selling, you don't have a product. And I found that interesting because there's so many products out there that are free.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that startups for maybe the first few years aren't profitable.
Well,
right? You might think that this company is killing it, but they haven't turned a profit in like a couple of years.
I mean, hell, Snapchat.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, most of these startups still don't make a profit. They're so tied to their investors, and all they are they're spending the money that their investors give them to ultimately find that product market fit where they are making a profit, but then they reinvest it in the business, and so the product market is so slim.
Because it's a catch-22. Let's say you are successful. Then all of a sudden you have to spend more money on just like cloud storage or something to be able to keep up with all the success, right? Yeah. So it's like, I could see that being an issue for sure.
Yeah, and it's even then it's like with the example of Snapchat, they IPO'd back, I think it was like 2011. Yeah. And their stock started at like $50 a share, and it tanked to 10 when people realized that they weren't actually making any money. Right. Right. It was just advertising, and they didn't really even introduce ads.
And then Meta basically copied the whole story thing, and it's like that was the one thing that Snap had, the expiring 24-hour story, right?
Yeah. It's cutthroat. Like when you start making money, if somebody sees, oh, this works, they just go in and they copy it. Like crazy. TikTok, Reels, whatever. ones that before that, Vine was
Right.
before its time.
Can
right?
you
Vine
not
was
trademark like a feature or something? That's always I've been curious about, right?
You can copyright, you can patent algorithms and you
Okay.
can patent certain things, but
Mhm.
they have to be unique enough.
Well, I would think the 24-hour expiring story would be unique, but obviously there wasn't. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if it was unique enough. I'd have to look into the copyright law on that, or in the patent law.
Mhm.
But again, if you tweak it just enough,
Yeah.
right? If you tweak it, even like for instance, if you could screenshot something on Snapchat and it doesn't alert you on Facebook or wherever that you have 24-hour stories, then maybe
Different.
exactly slightly different, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with music,
Mhm.
which I know we're mostly talking about music tech, but as a music business graduate, I learned a lot about copyright and learned that you can't copyright a chord progression,
Okay.
right? You can barely copyright a melody, but only to I think like 7 notes,
Wow.
right? and I think and that's where you see these songs that are like they sound just similar enough,
Right.
right? But there were the famous case of Led Zeppelin with Stairway to Heaven. They
Yeah.
stole it from an Australian band,
Vanilla Ice.
right? Vanilla
Right.
Ice, exactly.
Yeah.
Queen, and anyway, yeah.
Mm.
So I think
Interesting.
it's very interesting what you can and can't protect.
Yeah.
Usually algorithms are good though, because that's like your proprietary technology,
Mhm.
right?
So you mentioned, paying attention, listening to your users, but I would say users oftentimes they don't speak up if everything's great.
Right.
If there's a bug, you're going to hear about it
Yeah.
immediately. But if the app is crushing it and they love it, I don't ever say, "Hey, Instagram, I love what you're doing. Have a great day."
Right.
So how are you able to spur that conversation with the users and make them want to give you honest feedback?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good question. I think a lot of it comes down to social media. Like we'll do like polls on social media. I'll send out maybe a MailChimp, some sort of a survey.
Okay.
I really like talking to people at shows. So I'll go to a show that's posted on Fanwave that I see had a lot of traction and just being like, "Hey, have you heard about Fanwave?" They're like, "Oh yeah, that's how I found out about the show," and tell them, what do you like about it? What do you hate about it? It kind of gets a little laggy when it's, I don't have good service, and, or, I love this feature. I love that I can follow my favorite local artists and I don't have to be on Instagram all the time.
Yeah.
It sends me, because we have this thing where, and I didn't want to annoy people. So what we did was we consolidated the daily alerts. So if you follow 5 different venues and 5 different artists and they're all posting on the same day, unless it's the day of that show, you don't get an instant notification. You just
Okay.
get a notification right before bed around like 10 or 11 o'clock.
Mhm.
And it's like, hey, these artists that you follow and these
Like a
venues that you
summary
follow,
type of
exactly,
thing?
yeah.
Okay.
It said these people posted new shows. And then you go check your notifications, you can get more information on
Cool.
it, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, that's, I think, the biggest deal with a lot of these people don't want to give notification access because
Right.
they're getting pinged all the time
For
from these
sure.
random apps,
Yeah.
So we don't want to be annoying. We want to just provide a space for people to come find their favorite artists. So
Can you walk me through? I know it's early stages, but I don't know if you have any success stories, whether that be from a venue perspective or artist perspective, where you've had some success and they're like, "Hey, because of the data, we're able to produce X result, thanks to the app."
I wish I could tell you I did. We're still looking for kind of a guinea pig artist to
Okay.
essentially use the app for X period of time, get their fan base involved. I have a full-time job, so I'm
Sure.
not able to just dive in full-time with it. But any of our listeners today,
Yeah,
would
artists or
happily-
whatever,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
happily would take you on as a guinea pig, give you free something, whatever you need, promote your shows. And I've reached out. So one of our favorite artists who have been doing a great job is Limp Wizards. And
Okay.
they're a great band out of Norman. They write pop punk, and they went from like a silly band that we used to play with to like a pretty serious like pop punk band that are doing some serious numbers on Spotify. So
Yeah.
shout out to Limp Wizards, L-Dub. But they are constantly posting their shows, constantly promoting, constantly talking about Fanwave. So I've really been wanting to work with them, but a lot of them just don't have like the time, right?
Yeah.
And it's usually like one person out of their band that's posting. So we've offered to do like, hey, if you can help us here, and I actually really want to start from an artist who hasn't done anything, right? I want to get them,
Yeah. That'd be interesting.
right? Like I want to do like a bring you under my wing situation where I like teach you the ropes and teach you, But again, that's also time.
Right.
Yeah. So, but as far as success goes, I would say Resident Head did see some success when it comes to just getting their shows out there more.
Mhm.
A lot of people found out about Resident Head through Fanwave. They didn't even know that it existed, which is kind of cool. Same with Tower Theater, which is funny. A lot of people, they're like, oh, I didn't know there was a venue down the street. Like, some people are so clueless. It blows
Shout
my
out to
mind.
Chad.
Yeah. Yeah. So shout out Chad. And and it's it's been wild. And he was on your show, right? I said, that was like one of the first episodes.
Yeah, that's cool. So what about onboarding, right? So you mentioned having a full-time job.
Yeah.
If you're a venue, do you have to walk them through the onboarding, or is it something that they can pick up? Same thing with the artists? Or...
Yeah. So it's actually pretty easy. There's not really an onboarding process other than me linking your profile to the venue.
Okay.
We made it pretty simple. Again, it's an MVP. We just kind of wanted to cover all the bases. So as a promoter, so basically you create an account. So you're a fan, say you download the app. Let's say you start a band tomorrow. You go create a creator profile and you post your band on there, and then we approve you. You can also create a promoter profile, and the promoter can be followed just like an artist can, but it is not part of the lineup.
And this is independent of a venue?
Yeah, so the promoter is linked to a venue, essentially, right? So because sometimes promoters, sometimes venues will have multiple venues that they manage.
Yeah.
So we thought about that. And we're like, okay, so if Chad wanted to create an account and manage, Ponyboy, Tower, and Beer City, then he'd be able to.
Okay.
And that's kind of where we went that route. And also, if you are, an artist, you can post to any event, any venue, and if you get linked, so let's say you're in Fanwave and you're adding to the lineup, the artists that you add to the lineup, if they're in Fanwave, their profile also gets credited with that show. So you can go to that artist's page and see the show. Like, they can post on behalf of artists essentially too. So like, we kind of wanted to create this way for everybody to not just be a name, like be a profile, like be part of it. And I think that's the huge benefit so far.
Yeah. How rich are these profiles, right? So if I'm thinking from a band perspective, I'm brainstorming, does it allow me to post a flyer? Does it allow me to post a video, special shout out? Let's say I've got like my top fans and I'm like, oh, hey, it's Tanner's birthday today.
Mm-hmm.
How stoked would they be if like the lead singer is like, hey, what's up? Yeah, like,
that'd be sweet.
Birthday. Like,
yeah.
How rich is that profile?
So right now it's pretty basic. It's description, genres that they choose, and the artist name, their Spotify, Twitter, like all their social handles, website, pretty much what you get on Spotify. But then we're looking at having, and then their shows, right? So you can see like their upcoming shows, their next show, and then their upcoming shows.
Cool.
So we are going to be looking at adding what we were talking about before the show, kind of a photo pool, right, where people can post photos and tag
much needed, by the way, because we were talking about a lot of people need to just like unplug, right? So, and I've been to shows like Tool is one of those bands where they're like, we don't want to see any cell phones. If we see a cell phone, you're getting kicked out, right? So they want you to like pay attention, because a lot of people take, honestly, like sometimes crappy videos on your phone. Yeah. You're never going to go back and watch them.
Right.
Right. So if there was like a dedicated time, or even like a pool, like you said, where everybody can share the photos, video, or whatever.
Right.
And you can kind of just enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Right.
Like close the pool until the end of the show, and then have it open and be like, hey, post your show photos.
Or even right before.
Yeah, pre works too. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, like we're really playing around with the social element. I think the chat room, there's find a show buddy, which we were talking about. I think there's obviously some privacy concerns and some just like safety concerns that we want to address there. But ultimately that would be the goal of like, hey, I'm going to this show, and just put a beacon out essentially and have people just be like, oh, I'll be there too, instead of like going to their house and like meeting up, just meet at the show, meet at the venue, don't go any private locations. Exactly. I think there's a safer way to do that, but there's some things we're playing with. And I think we talked a little bit about it before the show, but the company that a lot of venues are actually using their free plan, but they're still charging a lot of money for the data for these other packages. And we'd like to work with them
Even ticket
yeah.
prices, man. If you go
Yeah.
to some of these sites, they want like a huge cut. If you're a
Yeah.
small band and you're just trying to sell tickets, it's a struggle to find a cool platform that's not going to just kill you.
Oh yeah,
Right?
for sure. Well, that's why when we built our ticketing piece, we matched what everybody else was using. We matched Pre-Kindle's prices.
Okay.
Right. We matched Eventbrite's prices.
Yeah.
So it was not to be competitive. It was just to be like, hey, if you need a solution that you don't want to like spend all of this time setting up,
Yeah.
and just go directly through Fanwave, we love it. Like,
And there's integration. Right?
Exactly.
So that's like one less thing you have to worry about and jump
Right.
out and do, right?
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to build tools for the DIY. We started DIY focused. A lot of these other companies will go top down. We went bottom up, bottom up approach. We think that it will be better for these communities because they often get forgotten about, right? People don't realize how much work it is to start a venue and how much work it is to make that venue succeed.
Right.
Because people just aren't coming out. I mean, that's the other thing we're trying to address is like getting more people to shows through that targeted marketing, through that, like you're in Fanwave, you have your location set to Oklahoma City. You're only going to see shows in Oklahoma City.
Is that a trend that you're noticing where people are going to less shows? I think when Chad was here, he was mentioning that most people might go to like 1 or 2 shows a year.
Yeah.
And to me, that was crazy because I'm a huge music fan.
Same.
I go to like 1 or 2, probably like a month.
Right.
So
Right.
when he was mentioning that, I was like, holy cow, like maybe I'm like the outlier here.
It's dropped off quite a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know the actual numbers, but I mean, like I said, 1 in 4 shows fails to turn a profit. So you're looking at, an event space like 250 cap, like at Res Head, that's showing 20 to 30 people sometimes for shows. Obviously the weekends are different. People are always looking on the weekends, but the weekends are also more competitive, right? So you might have somebody who comes for an opener, pays a ticket for the opener and then leaves, right? So the headliner band's paying to 10 people, because everybody else wanted to go to another show, right? So there's not really an incentive. That's another thing too, is like if there was maybe an incentive to stay for the whole show, if they could, there might be something there, right? We need to get more people out.
Yeah.
People would rather stay at home, watching Netflix, playing video games, just relaxing, and I think the live music experience has been, with the exception of like going to an arena show where you have pyrotechnics and crazy theatrics and everything like that, nobody just wants to go sit in a sweaty, crowded room.
Yeah. Unless you're a music nerd.
You're a music nerd,
Because
right?
then you're like, I want to sound like, to me, a song performed live sounds way different than the pre-recorded, right? So,
yeah. The music basic people, again, go 1 to 2 times a year.
Crazy.
Because I'll talk to people at the bar. I'll be like, hey, what do you do? What do you do for fun around it? Like, where do you find about your shows? We don't really go to shows. I'm like, well, who's your favorite band? Oh, I don't really have a favorite band. It's like crazy. It's like
that's crazy to me.
I'm like, how do you live without music?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but again, we're different. We're weird. Not everybody is like us. So
yeah. So you mentioned going to boot camp, learning how to code. Now that you have a tech startup, are you involved on that side of things? Because to me, if you're the face of the app, you almost have to be involved and dedicated to the business development side of things and probably be less hands-on on the actual coding.
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell me.
So yes, I do it all. I am the only person, and I'm the only person running Fanwave. I do have a team that I will sometimes, give tickets to that. So when we developed the app, I went through an agency in the UK who builds these specifically like no code apps because I wanted a quick revision rate. If somebody comes to me with a bug, I want to be able to fix that in an hour as opposed to a weekend.
You have to,
right? And you have to.
You're going to lose
exactly.
users. Like they get frustrated. They're like, I'm never going to use it again.
And you think that you've covered all the bases when it comes to bug testing, and and as soon as you launch it, somebody's going to find a bug.
Especially Android users. Shout out Android users.
Yeah.
There's so many like versions of Android, so many manufacturers.
I
think with iOS, it's probably easier. I don't know.
It's standardized. So that's the good thing about no code. So what's known as Bubble, it's this no code solution that we used. It actually gets packaged down into a website into the app, so it's
it's
mobile
like a
friendly.
wrapper
It's like a
type
wrapper, yeah, it wraps it. So you still have the notification piece, and you have like some of that native iOS integration.
Yeah.
But you can tell as you're using it, it doesn't feel like you're using like an app. It kind of
It's
feels
not
like you're using a
native.
glorified website. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
native, right?
Okay.
So ultimately, the goal would be to build a glorified, not a glorified, an app.
Native.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go full native, right? React Native, some sort of cross compilation where you have both the Android and the iPhone.
Yeah.
But yeah, Android users, we saw a huge amount of bugs with Android users, even when it comes to like location permissions, because it's totally different from iOS.
And I think that Android users, I don't want to put them in the same bucket, but they're some of the worst offenders for not updating their phones.
100%.
Right? Like iOS users, for whatever reason, they're always excited, like, oh, there's a new iOS update. I'm going to update. But Android, not so much. I don't know why.
Well, iPhone always like, not to use the term too much, but glorifies their updates. They're like,
True.
oh, we have this new feature in the camera. We have this many more emojis, right? So
True.
Android is probably like, we fixed a few bugs.
Fixing bugs.
You know?
That's true.
It's like, Steve Jobs, R.I.P., he really made the marketing of the Mac and like the Apple
like
brand.
one more thing.
Exactly.
Right?
One more thing. Like,
Yeah.
we have the thing that you don't have. And then Andrew's like, wait, we've had that for 10 years.
Right. Yeah. That's
But
true.
nobody says it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
right now you've got the app. Is it iOS, Android, and then is there also like a web version? Is
Yeah.
it the same version? It's just wrapped across.
It's exactly. So the web version is the app. So if you go to app.fanwave.io on your phone, you'll basically have the same functionality as the iOS, and
Got it.
you just don't get the push notifications.
Okay.
You can still get the notifications in the web app, but you don't get the push notifications. So it's kind of it's like it's just a software, a web software.
What about from a venue perspective? If they want to do a deep dive, is there a different dashboard or something on the website?
It's all within Fanwave.
Okay.
Yeah, which is that's kind of what we wanted to do, and we're trying to make the user experience even better too, because right now kind of some things are hidden that shouldn't be hidden. When I say hidden, it takes more than a few clicks to get to, and we're seeing that people are opening the app. Oh, I don't know how to post a show, so then they like don't create a profile. Right? We're trying to really lower that barrier to entry for new artists that download Fanwave, because we've had people like, how do you download? Well, you got to go to the profiles tab, right? It's like, how do I get there? Like they're barely spending much time, right? They're these, and
So are you doing support as well? So
oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're like a one-man band type of thing, or
on my lunch break, and this is funny. So I used to put all of the events in myself.
manually?
So I would go manually
Jeez.
and put it all. So then I eventually built a script that runs through Pre-Kindle and grabs their stuff, right? For the venues that we're working with.
Yeah.
And because they're like, oh, we don't want to do any more partnerships right now. We're,
Right.
okay, that's fine. So I built the script myself, and we just run it, and we get the data, and it works pretty well for the most part. So we're able to collect a lot of the ones here.
Okay.
But I was doing it literally on my lunch break every single day, just going to and I would have like a Monday.
You go to the
Tower Theater.
website and just
Yeah.
like manually input.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah, I had 2 tabs open, and I was just going back and forth.
Yeah.
And it became very tedious.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, not sustainable at all. But that was to, you kind of got to do the unrealistic things in order to get the first users. And I seeded the database enough that I was able to capture the attention. Like, oh, these venues are posting? No, it's just me. But
Interesting.
But so I do the support, I do the development. If I see an issue, I'll log that and I'll send it to my team. Or if I think I can fix it, I'll go into Bubble and fix it myself.
Okay.
So that's the beauty of being having a technical background.
Yeah. But then the business development and also the promo side of things, like, I don't know, it's probably like you don't get to dedicate as much time to that. Right?
Especially I'm a stepdad too. So like I've got a kiddo who's with her grandma this weekend, her Meemaw, and she takes up a lot of my time too, right? And so my girlfriend manages a bar. She's shout out Lunar Lounge. If you guys don't know about that, it's a cool little speakeasy in downtown and midtown Oklahoma City that is just fantastic.
Cool.
Great craft cocktails. But anyway, so she works weekends, and so I'm babysitting on the weekends usually, and that's when all the shows are, right? So I'll usually have to get a sitter or something to go out to a show, and then weeknights, it's just kind of hit or miss. I don't get to do as much promotion as I'd like to, but also I don't want to spend all my time at the shows, right? I need to do more tech things, right? I need to build, like this weekend I just put together and just launched actually yesterday a thing called livemusicdirectory.com, which is kind of a backlink to Fanwave, which has all the live music venues, excluding like arenas in the nation and in Canada. I grabbed that data, and it was just more of like a passion project that I put together. And so you could put near me, and then you can see all the live music data, not the events, just the venues.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it was more of like a database thing that I wanted to do, but I wanted to try to attract traffic to that and then have them go into Fanwave from that.
Yeah. I would say it's a struggle
Yeah.
because I see a lot of creatives don't even have a website anymore,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
if you're trying to figure out the tour for your favorite, up and coming artists,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like you have to go to their IG. Maybe they haven't posted in months. You're like,
Yeah.
let me go check Facebook. They may not have anything there. So it's like always like a struggle, right? So I could see if you have like a centralized spot and you can see all the tour dates,
Yeah.
that's a win in itself.
Yeah. Well, and that's and so that's a little tricky, but you have that with Spotify and Bands in Town, but people don't know that exists, right?
And
they,
probably doesn't get populated, right?
exactly. If it's not posted on Bands in Town, it's not posted on Spotify, and nobody really wants to pay for Bands in Town. Like Bands in Town isn't free, and so like there is a market there somehow for a free DIY situation. It's just like how do we capture that? How do we get it good enough? And people are like, oh, so you're kind of like Bands in Town. Whenever I tell them about Fanwave, they're like, oh, you're kind of like Bands in Town. I'm like, we're better than Bands in Town.
Yeah. So why are you so passionate about solving this? Is it from you just being a musician yourself, or why are you passionate about? Are you more passionate about helping artists, helping venues, or just the music industry in general?
So kind of a lot of things. I'm passionate about Oklahoma City.
Mm.
I think we're a great city. I think we have a lot going for us.
Yeah.
The music scene is not it's not recognized as much as like Austin.
It's not the first thing you think about.
Exactly.
Right?
It's not the first thing, but we have so much talent here.
Yeah.
The other thing is just people don't really know what to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there was some sort of a roadmap, right? I wanted a linear path to success through Fanwave. I want to show an artist that they can go from zero to hero. Pardon the cliche, but it really
gym class hero.
Yeah, exactly. And show them that it works if you track your data and get them playing those shows that they want to play. Whether they want to go be a rock star, whether they just want to gig on the weekends, right? We want to have a solution for them. And then ultimately, too, I wanted to create a company that would potentially create jobs. I very passionate about this market. I think there's a lot we have going for us. I wanted to be the next tech company focused in music, music industry. And I don't know how that happens. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
We got to find our product market fit. But I think ultimately my passion comes from being a musician, seeing the struggles we had, seeing the struggles that are currently that people are currently facing, and solving those. And it's even worse now. Like I mentioned, like with the nobody's going to shows. That's kind of been happening the last 10 years, and it's only going to get worse.
Wow. Okay.
So.
Yeah. So elephant in the room, I've been wanting to ask you, are you just a big fan of the 90s or what, right? Like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you tell me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I am. Don't get me wrong. I love Nirvana. I love grunge. I love, the 90s.
I've seen the MTV. I've seen like the 90s.
Yeah. So I'm on the board of Techloma, and we have a bison. It's so our mascot is a bison.
Yeah.
And we call it the bison. It's a play
like
on
a
Jason.
Jason?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a play on Jason. The bison gala tonight. And it's basically a silent auction with some events and some food and all that stuff. So, and it's 90s themed. I'm on the board, so they were like, you should probably dress up.
Yeah.
And so I ordered this stuff. It thankfully came in time, but I was like, I kind of like the shirt.
I like it. Yeah.
It's like,
I like it. You can pull it off.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So for the people out there that aren't as familiar with Techloma, tell me about that, because it's a cool org.
Mm-hmm.
I think they also do like development, like if you want to learn how to code, boot camp, sort of that sort of stuff, right? And probably also for founders, there's a lot of pros for that, right?
Yeah.
So you tell me.
So we have a Slack community. We have local events that are happening constantly, around Clever, a local dev agency. We have coffee and codes at random coffee shops. You'll just randomly see 50 people show up at a coffee shop, which is really cool. We have some really energized community leaders. But yeah, it's a space. If you're in tech, or if you're in design, or if you're just tech adjacent, we'd love to have you. It's free. Just come join our Slack, and then come to some events. But yeah, the goal is to provide a space for people. Like as you mentioned, founders, coders. We do have OK Coders, which is a boot camp through. That's not the one I went to because it wasn't available whenever I was doing it, but it's a boot camp through Oklahoma City. I think they're working on doing some. Actually, it might be Tulsa too now. They're working on doing some like partnerships, internships with local companies. Like if you finish OK Coders, then maybe you could eventually get into a job. Just some random things like that. So yeah, love it. It's a great community. Very helpful, very supportive. They helped me get my first job. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. How'd you get involved? Is it just like you being in tech, you kind of just started going to the meetings or something? Because I think a lot of people are probably intimidated where they're like, tech, I'm a fan of tech, but maybe I'm not as techie as others, right?
So funny enough, I moved back from Buffalo in 2019 and just started going. I was like, I'm going to start a business, right? And I started going to different, I went on this Meetups app. I don't know if it's still going, but Meetups. You can find groups, and I found this 1 Million Cups group. I went there. They told me about Techloma. I got involved, and here I'm as a board member, which was it's crazy.
Escalated quick.
Yeah, for sure. I've been a moderator on there, so I'm a moderator on the Slack. But I think getting involved was just like just a really funny coincidence, right? Somebody just happened to mention it, and then I went to a hiring fair that they had Thunder planes above it. So there were two conferences happening at the same time, and I was like looking for a job, and I talked to the right person. I was just being out and open. I talked to the right person. Like, oh, I know somebody who's doing something like that. Talked to them. They ended up working for another company, and that's my current job I work for. So it's really funny the way you just kind of land yourself into a job.
Yeah. So tell me what's on your playlist, right? You being a music guy, also being exposed to all these upcoming artists. If I pull up your playlist, who am I going to find on your playlist?
Man, so much. Anything from coffee shop jazz to, chill wave. Right now, I'm on a huge metal kick. Even like I've been listening to like Sleep Token. I've been listening to, Between the Buried and Me, and I actually recently found So are you familiar with Electric Callboy?
No.
Do you like metal music?
Of course.
Yeah. Electric Callboy is kind of like, it's like
old school metal type of thing, or what?
No, more. So do you know? I don't know why I can't think of their names right now. The Japanese girl pop band, girl metal band,
Pink something.
No, so there's.
Baby
metal.
I was like,
thank you. I don't know why my brain was.
I knew it was something like
they just played here actually, but they did a song with Electric Callboy, and it's crazy. It's called Ratatata, and but it's more. I think they're European. They're German, if I'm not mistaken. But they have some really great music, and so they've been on my playlist like pretty constantly.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, if I'm just like wanting to chill out while I'm coding, I'll either listen to like binaural beats or like some sort of like yoga music, because I just need something to calm my mind.
Okay.
But I can't really listen to things that have lyrics while I'm coding. I'm not like a multitasker like that.
Yeah. So you're a fan of like, what's that? Like the Lo-Fi Girl on YouTube or whatever that channel is. Yeah.
I have a whole lo-fi playlist. Yeah. Lo-fi hip hop. Yeah. Lo-fi chill out. Chill wave. Okay. Anything that doesn't have Tycho was a huge influence whenever I was producing, because I also used to produce music too. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's a whole other thing. You can find my on SoundCloud and Spotify. It's under Cloud Thief.
Okay. So to this day, you're still producing and making new music?
I haven't in a long time. I want to get back into it. I've had some really good ideas for some stuff, but I just, between the coding, being a dad, wanting to also play being a founder, also wanted to play video games on the weekends, and then go to shows. Yeah, there's just not enough time in the day, which I wish there was. So.
Right. So do you have any gems or any tips for local artists or even not local artists, right? We have a lot of audience that watches us outside of Oklahoma. If you're an artist and you're trying to build a community, you're trying to build a fan base, do you have any tips for them? Because right now, I think it's a struggle, especially with all the algorithms changing. Social media is all over the place. I don't know. Do you have any tips?
Yeah. Start local first. Make sure that I've seen so many bands break up because they try to prematurely tour before they're ready, and they don't come back with any money other than pity money. And they're fighting because somebody took a week off,
Or max their credit card.
Maxed out the credit card.
Yeah.
They're out of gas. Like can't fill up the van. The van broke down. So focus on your community first. Play a few shows for at least a year. A few shows each month. Find the smaller venues. They usually take a chance on you. You might not be playing, the Tower. You might not be playing some other big, venues, but you will build that credit, and you will build up to where people can take it. Bigger venues will take a chance on you, and then make those connections, right? Go out, talk to people, talk to artists. You never know who somebody knows, and who's looking for, it really comes down to, it's just like the tech industry. It comes down to who you know.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing would be leverage social media, but don't actually, on that note, there's a guy that I followed and have been following for a long time. His name's Bacon's Bits, I think. Anyway, he's on Instagram, and he gives valuable information to indie artists.
Okay.
He just does like these small little, he's got a cigar in his mouth all the time. It's really funny but highly recommend following him.
Yeah.
Because he manages a lot of artists. I think he's out of Brooklyn or New York City or something, but he's very, very cool.
Yeah. So. What about as far as data, right? Like, I know you're a huge proponent, but what would you tell bands or artists about tracking their data?
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't know, do venues look at that now? Are they going to be like, okay, well, show me your numbers, right?
Absolutely.
Before I can put on a show.
Data is everything.
Yeah.
EPK is cool, but if you can be like, this is the amount of people, if you could, I'll download Fanwave, right? Download Fanwave, make a profile, and get your fans to track and tell them, hey, check into our shows, right? With the current iteration that we have, and then use that data, take screenshots of it, maybe create an Excel spreadsheet.
Love that.
Right. And then just put like, this is my show. This is the amount of people that we brought in. Even if you're not 100% sure, even if you brought 20 and only 5, just say you brought 20, right? It doesn't matter. Don't fake the numbers, obviously, because you don't want to get in bad graces with the venue. But if you can do that and do it on your own, that speaks volumes.
But start, right?
Right.
Because
start doing it.
The best, time to start was probably yesterday.
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of bands are like, I don't want to do this. Who wants to mess around with Google spreadsheets or whatever, right? So,
or even a notepad, literally just a notepad, a journal, just like a show journal. Be like, I played, Dear Diary, I played this to this many people today.
That's true. I love that because I think that's super important. And also, like, when you are ready to tour, that data may help you plan that tour. We're like, hey, we've got a huge market in Tulsa. We've got a lot of people in Austin or whatever. Let's plan our tour that way based on our data.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And so one of the guys I work with at Blue Note, he's like, I have to reach out to an Arkansas venue to see if this band who's coming through is going to bring a crowd.
Yeah.
And if they aren't, then I might not book them, right? And he's like, they have to also be good. Like if I hear a bad reputation about somebody, right? So these venues are talking.
But imagine all the variables, right? Let's say you call on a random Tuesday.
Right.
The guy that picks up the phone is some guy that doesn't want to be there.
Right.
And like, I've never heard of that band or whatever. They don't want to talk to him. You just lost the shop. Maybe you did have the numbers, but because of that phone call, the data is missed.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if that venue was looking at that data, right? If you could send something, right, an email that has that data included.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like, at the end of the day, it comes down to the data, and where it comes from, nobody knows.
Right.
But I think it has to come directly from the consumer. It comes directly from either consumer or the venue through that averages thing. That's what I mentioned, which could potentially be a solution to it. Right. It's estimated data.
Right.
So,
what's the best way for viewers, fans, bands, venues, you name it, to support you, help what you're doing, and just continue this movement that you got going on?
Fans, download the app, find your favorite new local artist. Venues, download the app. Also, try not to play Try not to book too many of the same band in the same month.
Okay.
I think that's a big thing.
Like as far as genres or
the same band,
the same band
yeah,
specific?
yeah,
Oh, wow,
or
that
within
happens.
within 2 months. Yeah, I mean,
Really?
and there's these favorite bands. There's these favorite bands that people like to book because obviously they bring people in, but they're not going to bring the same group in every time because it's like, oh, I don't want to see this band here because they're playing at this venue here, right? There's that kind of that unspoken rule that you're not supposed to do that, but some people do it anyway because it's anyway. I'm not trying to give venue advice. I'm not a venue owner, right? But I'm just
you're seeing the data.
I'm seeing the data. I'm talking to the fans. They're like, yeah, we don't want to see XYZ band because they've played this many shows, this many places, and it's all local. Right? So,
Right.
And then artists download the app, create a profile. It's pretty easy. If you run into issues, there's there's a solutions box. You can send me a message. You can even follow Fanwave and send me a DM on Instagram. It's just fanwave.io.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, I think the biggest thing would just be support the app, support your local community, go to more shows. And you're going to go to the bar. If you don't go to a show and you're going to spend $30, $40, $50 anyway, why not put a small portion of that, have one less drink and go support a local artist?
For sure.
Right. Multiple local artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing is like people don't see where their money's really going, especially when they're drinking it away or they're buying a new video game or something.
Yeah.
Hold off on it. Go. You're not going to see these venues stay around much longer if you don't support your local community.
Yeah.
So, and that goes for everywhere, not just Oklahoma City. It's dying everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I enjoyed the conversation. I want to give you the stage. Go ahead, plug in your social media once again.
okay.
And also if you have a personal social media for your music stuff as well, I don't know, but go ahead, plug in everything you've got.
Yeah. Sorry. I guess I kind of did some plugs during the conversation.
It's all good.
If you're interested in like chill wave, chill music, I did produce a few things a few years ago and they're posted on Spotify. That's under Cloud Thief. And that's also on SoundCloud. Fanwave is, you can find us at fanwave.io if you want to download the app. It's on the App Store and Google Play Store. And my personals, if you want to follow me, it's Bed Bath Burritos
Nice.
on Instagram.
Man, now you tell me
Yeah,
this. Now I'm
yeah,
curious. All right, you
yeah,
got to
yeah.
explain that. You just
Yeah.
can't slide that through.
Well, it used to be Canadian Tuck Speedo.
Nice. Okay.
And then I moved back to America.
What
so,
rhymes?
yeah. So I'm a huge fan of alliteration and
Yeah.
puns, and,
Yeah.
and I think it's probably the dad humor that I've always been a dad without being a dad.
Okay. Love that.
And but I love puns. So yeah, Bed Bath Burritos.
Nice.
Obviously playing on Bed Bath Beyond.
Mm.
I love burritos.
Same.
Yeah, burritos are the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's probably it. Yeah, download the app. Let me know what you think. Send me a DM if you like the show or have any questions. And yeah, again, I think we already mentioned it, but please, if you're an artist, come reach out. If you've never played a show, reach out. I want to support you
That would
and
be cool.
and
Yeah.
really bring you under our wing to see what we can do for you. So.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I think I want to start doing is ask every guest, what's your favorite emoji? And then that way the viewers can drop it in the comments. So do you have a favorite emoji that people can drop in the YouTube comments?
I love the rock on emoji and I love the fire emoji.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Love that. I was expecting the burrito emoji, but
I don't use it as much as I
Yeah.
should probably,
Mhm.
but also the food ones kind of are weird.
Mhm.
There's sometimes I wish I had one for that,
True.
But now there's AI emojis, right? So you can create your own food emojis. So
All right, love that. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the super talented Tanner Smith on the Maverick Podcast, and Dreams We Trust.